Hi, everyone. Just gonna get started real quick. Sorry, we're running a little behind, but want to introduce our speaker here. We've got Alicia Lanier here, who's going to talk to us about the Watershed program for Fayetteville. Obviously, everyone knows watershed and flooding issues are a huge concern. There's a lot of forethought and everything that needs to go on with that. And with our environmental conditions changing and just a lot of adaptation and update that everyone needs to do. So I'll let her get started, and hopefully everyone can see. I'm going to try and adjust this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just y'all probably saw my bio and in the announcement and everything. And sorry it was so long, but I thought I should explain myself. Like I started NC State, and then I moved out west for I don't know 26 years or something, and worked with a consulting engineering company. And then I was working for myself. Moved to Miami, Florida, and with COVID, I came back home, which is actually where I live is Clarkton. It's an hour south of Fayetteville, and you wouldn't know you're in a town if you go through Clarkton, basically. So anyway, but I'm back. I've been pretty excited to be in Raleigh quite a bit since I've been back. My daughter actually went to school, veterinary school here. And then unfortunately she decided she liked Portland, Oregon better, and she moved back and abandoned me. So anyway, that's my story. I've been with the city of Fayetteville for 5 years now, and I've been managing the Watershed Master Plan program for the city of Fayetteville. And so I'm just going to tell you today some history of what we've been up to, and then some looking forward to where we're going. All right, so we've done introductions. Now the program itself is about 7 years in, and I'll talk about some big challenges, some exciting next steps, and hopefully we'll have room for questions. And I don't know how your format is. Do you allow questions during presentations? I'm okay with that too if y'all want to, but yeah. Well, maybe that's a good idea, because sometimes you get the questions and like, well, I'm getting to that. Yeah. Okay. And am I supposed to be managing the chat? Okay. Thank you. All right. So I know y'all are just, 1 hour north of Fayetteville. We're the 6th largest city in North Carolina. I actually didn't realize that myself until I started working there. We have over 210,000 residents, and we're about 100 square miles in area. There's been a real big push in Fayetteville to advance the downtown area. A lot of the same amenities that we have in Raleigh and Cary, other places. Fayetteville's beginning to jump into that and try to create a nice environment. At least it's a lot nicer than it was in the 1970s when I was in high school. So in 2018, our council gave us a directive to accelerate our stormwater CIP program through comprehensive citywide watershed studies. What we'd been doing before was just reactive. There's a lot of complaints in one neighborhood. We'd go upsize the culvert, or a council person, wanted really asked for a lot more work in their area. That's what we ended up doing. So this was for a comprehensive program, and we had to start. This might not be as meaningful to you as it is to me, but the first 3 years we had to spend a lot of time collecting stormwater asset data. All we had primarily was there's a pipe here, and it might be this big, but we just did not have a good survey for our stormwater assets. And so we had a stormwater utility. The fee had grown to about 13 million. And so we could go ahead and start collecting that data, and starting our studies. And then along the way, we've been asking for appropriations to continue funding the studies. This is an interesting slide. I'm sorry about the colors. On the screen, the ones that look like yellow on your screen are the only 3 watershed studies, the big high level studies that we have left. So we're working on, we've completed most of the others. We're at some stage of completion. We have 15 watersheds. So we've really gotten a lot done. We've identified over 300 proposed solutions, over $1 billion worth of need in the city so far. So, but we've been lucky and then kind of unlucky, as everybody has with BRIC, right? BRIC, but we've gotten some other sources of funding with the DEQ blueprint, with Golden Leaf, and we're pursuing HMGP grants for some of our bigger projects I meet as part of. We've also won an award for local excellence in flood mitigation, which we're very proud of, through the National Association of State Floodplain Managers. We've got over 10 projects in some stage of design or construction, and we're really trying to work hard to get a lot of designs done, because so many of these grants, and I think the DEQ blueprint is following that same path of wanting shovel-ready projects. So we're trying to prepare ourselves to have as many of those as we can. So what did we do? We really had to start from scratch. We had to identify where we were going to do the studies, what we're going to study, when, and how. And we looked at high priority study areas. Consulting company Fries and Nichols conducted a high level modeling for the citywide. Of course, we couldn't and we shouldn't study every single area in the city boundaries. And so those high level studies, based on looking at flooded roads, emergency facilities, disconnected structures, and then structures that are impacted from flooding. So using those levels of severity. Yeah, there's a lot of yellow on there. What we're trying to show in this figure is that the yellow are where we ended up focusing our efforts, our study efforts for now. We'll continue studying. Now we've started, we'll continue, but this was the first big effort that we took. And we call those high priority study areas. Like I said, we had to completely go through those high priority areas, do a complete survey of our stormwater assets in those areas before we could start the studies, and we had to rebuild our geodatabase. So that was a complete rebuild of our geodatabase. Now we're in a place where we're actually conducting survey for the rest of the areas that we have not. That's another 5-year program, and that's in process. When were we going to study? Yeah, you can see a little bit of here, but basically we've tried with our capacity at the city of Fayetteville. We only had capacity to manage internally about 4 studies. And of course, we've got a vast network of consulting firms helping us and doing the heavy lifting of the work. And so we had 4 watershed studies, 4 teams working in parallel over the past several years. And one thing that we're doing and has been very, very helpful is as we develop proposed solutions, we're taking those to council even before the study is completely final. And the reason for that is, a lot of people, well, how can I say it? Yeah, you can build 20 $1 million culverts, upsize 20 culverts for $1 million. What are you getting with this plan? And so we've been taking them all along the way. How are we going to study it? So we assess the severity of the flooding, and then we develop potential solutions. We're prioritizing solutions and then looking for funding and implementing them. And, you know, everything's iterative and adaptive. I guess I should say how we're prioritizing. Right now, we've just been looking at the concern areas that score the highest. And then we're looking at a range of types of projects from large to smaller ones so that we can have, and then across the study areas so that we can cover as many council districts, as many of the citizens who are paying this fee to get this work done as we can. We'd like to have that prioritization really beefed up coming in the future, and hope to start working on that fairly soon. So how? There are a lot of details. I won't go into them. One big thing we did was we took on a requirement that we use ICM. So Autodesk has since acquired InfoWorks ICM, and we're requiring that on all of our watershed studies. I don't think we're requiring that on our designs necessarily, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know, this, you can't see it. It's all kind of blanked out. The one down at the bottom is an illustration of the geodatabases. It's just a lot of fields. So I said we assess the severity of the flooding. Sometimes James Talion comes to these meetings, and he's the one who recommended that, you know, I reach out to see if y'all are interested in this topic. And Jim doesn't really like the way we've been doing it. So don't take this as the way we're going to continue doing assessing the severity of the flooding. But the important thing to show here is, you know, we are looking at what highest level of service is met. We're creating exhibits for existing conditions. We're looking at future conditions, rainfall. We're adding a 6% increase of rainfall depth to the NOAA Atlas 14 in the absence of our updated NOAA Atlas 15, which Dr. Bowden, NC State, has said it's better than nothing, but probably not enough. We're considering all kinds of options. And we're really, when we're looking at things, we're just being very based on facts. We haven't added a lot of other considerations in terms of equity, I don't know, social impacts or environmental concerns to this point, because we had to do so much just to start getting some projects in the ground, getting something built. We're also considering regional overlays and master plans. So all the departments, the city has just developed a city ombudsman position. Jennifer Baptiste is her name, and she's working with us now moving forward on really big projects to help us make sure that we've pulling in all the master plans, all the considerations from other departments across the city, including Fayetteville State, and other entities. Like I said, we're developing potential solutions, and that's that 6% increase on the NOAA Atlas rainfall. This is the part Jim doesn't like per se, but it works for us. Basically, what we're saying is we have this existing condition. We're evaluating how many, what's linear feet of lane length is impacted, and impacted structures, number of impacted essential facilities, number of disconnected structures, and we also have a traverse road crossing risk. And then on the bottom, the second level is when we design a proposed solution, how well does that proposed solution solve the flooding for us? In this case, that one's really good. Like I said, we have early and continuous delivery. So if you think of in my role, our role as public services department, our clients really are council, city management and council who represent the citizens. And so we're trying really hard and diligently as we go along to bring proposed solutions to them as soon as possible so that we can start designs and we can start looking for funding as soon as possible. We're taking all of our proposed solutions from the watershed studies to council and asking for inclusion in the capital improvements program. We're also identifying top proposed solutions or highest scoring solutions that we would like to pursue even quicker. I feel like I'm rushing through this, y'all. I told me I was a little bit nervous, but anyway, we'll have plenty of room for questions. So we have some real big challenges, like everywhere, I guess. We've got one neighborhood. This is not the only neighborhood where we have a lot of repetitive flooding reports, but you see there, I don't remember the number of homes. This is a residential area, but all that red, they are flooded even under very small events. And so for that neighborhood, we've really worked hard to identify a potential solution if there's one. We looked at building a levee all around the neighborhood. That was going to be about $40 million, and diverting over to the Cape Fear River, as much of the flow as we could. But these really huge costs, we can't justify them with the benefit cost ratio. So it's been difficult. For this particular neighborhood, we identified a project to raise the road in one location just to make sure that we eliminate a single access. We provide the single access neighborhood ingress and egress during an event. We actually are also looking at HMGP funding right now because across the state, there's a lot of that available for the state, and not just in Helene areas, but across the state. And I think we opened it up to the public. We had the records of repetitive loss, repetitive complaints. And I think there were about 20 or 30 that we had identified, and we got about 4 applications. So we really tried to support the community in applying for some of that funds for buyouts or elevations. There just wasn't a lot of interest. This particular neighborhood, we've talked to them a lot about buying flood insurance. I'm glad Amit is here because we have Russell Person Street Solution, and Atkins Realis is the program manager for this really large project. We're replacing 4 bridges. We're and we're enhancing, is it 4,000 linear feet of Blunt's Creek as part of that project. It's a $21 million project. We had been awarded a FEMA brick grant for it because we had not started construction. They took away all that part that was related to construction. So we're also looking at an HMGP grant to continue that work. But the city's very committed. We've got great help. I mean, can tell you there's a lot of effort has been put in. I think there's DOT bridge, city bridge, and complicating factor, there's a railroad bridge. Luckily for us, the DOT bridge actually burned, caught on fire. Was that a
Christmas Day 2 years ago?
Christmas Day 2 years ago? The DOT bridge caught on fire. So suddenly they're like, yeah, I guess we got to replace it. So now we get to replace it. It was serendipitous, bad, but serendipitous. Now, this is a new part. Some of you, if you've heard this presentation, I had said we're looking at Cross Creek. Cross Creek runs right through downtown. So Cross Creek, I thought I had a better map, but Cross Creek comes from one angle, Blunt's Creek comes up. In the middle is where Fayetteville's sitting. So we're right in the middle two main creeks. This picture was taken during Tropical Storm Debbie. And it's pretty major impacts. But you can see that, I think, can y'all see? Yeah, the water is just, this is a channel here, but the water just spreads out everywhere. So what we are proposing, and council, I think 3 weeks ago, approved for us to move forward with the Cross Creek Channel improvements, preliminary design. So it's the first stage of trying to understand what we could do in this corridor and what's possible. And the idea is that it may take 10 years. We're not going to have $50 million right now to spend on this project, but there's a lot of city-owned land along this corridor. And what we're proposing is, as part of this preliminary design, is to look at where the potential alignments, reasonable, viable alignments should be, and then set in place kind of like a master plan for this project. And then I think there's going to be some policy development for it, because the council changes, I think it's every 2 years. I mean, we may get people, right now we've got really good support specifically of this project. And who knows what's going to happen, even as early as January this next year. One thing that happened while we presented this to council, the Mayor Pro Tem Jensen just addressed the council and said, look, yeah, we've been talking about this. There's a report on this from the 1970s. We've been talking about this for 50 years. It's time to decide to do something or just quit talking about it. And so they were like, okay, yeah, let's move forward. So this is a very exciting project for us. Rose Lake dry detention. We've got, I don't know, over 50 dams in the city of Fayetteville. Some are public, some are private, a lot of private dams. This one actually is a private, it's a defunct HOA, so there's no clear ownership of the dam. And we have approval to move forward to try to find funding for rebuilding this dam as a dry detention. So we would raise it and store water in it, during an event, and then slowly release it over the next 2 or 3 days. And this Rose Lake dry detention is above the Cross Creek Channel that I just showed you. And so in tandem, if we can get both of those projects done, we will have mitigated a lot of that serious flooding that we see, or that you saw in the picture. We have another dam, College Lake Dam. College Lake Dam came out of the Carvers Creek watershed study, and that we actually had a very good BC benefit cost ratio with the solution that the consultants came up with. So we're currently, there's a dam RFQ that's out, and we're currently looking for funding for this dam as well. So I'm not a dam person, but this proposed spillway, some of you might be interested in. One key component is that we want this to be an overtopping dam, and I understand that that's really requires some advanced skills. I just threw this slide in. I thought y'all might find this interesting. We went to council with the Carvers Creek watershed study, and we had done a lot of evaluation on that College Lake Dam. I mean, there's a lot of data behind the recommendation that was made, which was the proposed redesigned dam. So all the stuff that looks white here on the screen should be green. And we stood in front of council and said, well, we started with this slide. We've got a lot of data. We can tell you about all these different options we looked at. Essentially, red is red was not good and green was good. And so you can see the proposed redesigned dam at a glance just surfaces as the best option. And we got to this slide and okay, and now, we paused and said, are there any questions? And the mayor said, well, I just moved that we go ahead and add this to the CIP and move forward with it. And we're like, well, there's a lot of data. But that's because, and we talked about this, we had met our commitments. We had pushed hard to get proposed solutions in front of council. We're transparent about where we are in our process. And we're very clear about how much we're spending, how much we need. And with this current council, there's a lot of trust. And I think that was indicative of that high level of trust that they have with the work we're doing as a program. There's some interesting tools. So HDR developed a gauge adjusted radar rainfall. I mean, they did a gauge adjusted radar rainfall analysis for us. And that was wonderful because we've got, like everywhere, if you just use that blanket design storm, you're not capturing the geographical differences and the spread of the storms. So they developed that for us. They gave us historical storms. So we included Matthew. They also developed another design storm that we could use. And we use that to help validate the modeling results. And when I say validate, we were every stage of the way. We have sat in front of our streets maintenance, the people who've been around and really know the city and know where the flooding issues are, and said, okay, did this flood in Matthew? If our modeling showed it flooded in Matthew, but then this gauge adjusted radar rainfall, what did it show? And then we went back to streets and said, are we still on track? Is this still a priority area for us? Another tool, we do retrospectives fairly often. There's a lot of text down there on this one, but we did this one virtually with the entire consulting team. There are about 10 teams when we did this one. So four primes and then subs under the primes. And basically we just do a real simple retrospective, asking what went well, what could be changed, and what ideas. And from this first retrospective, some of those ideas we moved forward into implementing as improving the actual program and the way we were doing the study. So we feel very good about continuous improvement. I don't really like to use that term because when I was in consulting, and continuous improvement sometimes meant fire a whole bunch of people and here come the new people. I'm sorry, I keep looking at you, Amit, but I think you might remember some of those days. But that's really important. Continuous process improvement. This map shows the locations of our stream and our precipitation gauges. And we've been very diligent about continuing every year to request funding to install new gauges. So we started these studies. We had one stream gauge on the Cape Fear River, and that was it for the whole study. And it didn't even have a precipitation gauge. So we added a precipitation gauge co-located with that stream gauge. We've gone through mostly with USGS. So now we have 4. We're hoping to install 2 more this year. We have the funding. If they can help us get there. We have a combination of co-located and separate precipitation gauges. So now we're in a really good spot to understand what's happening with our stream systems and for future modeling efforts. And one of the most exciting things about that is, I know y'all are all familiar with FIMAN and the Flood Inundation Mapping Alert Network that the state maintains, and our data is ingested into that system as well. And so we're being able to use this system and use our data. We're in talks with emergency management right now. How can we help them now better than we could even last year? So We have 3 of those low-cost sensors, IntelliSense sensors. I think it's still called IntelliSense. We have 2 of them are currently installed, but the state, NCEM, has an Adopt a Gauge program, and so we're part of that. And they actually do the heavy lifting on any kind of maintenance. We go and cut the if we need to, we go and cut out the kudzu. If they'll notice if it's down, we'll send our guys out to take a look to see if if there's something visually wrong with it. Maybe these tend to get vandalized a lot. Yeah, yeah. Okay. We've had ESP has developed some custom alert sheets for us that we can use with Feynman, and these are very nice. We need to validate them. But once you can't see at the bottom, but they're okay. In Feynman, anyone can go in and set up alerts. You can even set up your own custom alerts. But we wanted them with their modeling to tell us which alerts could we set to know when a particular roadway is flooding that might be overtopped or a foot below. So that's the kind of stuff we're asking them to help us develop now. Okay, so what's next? I mentioned the dam RFQ has gone out. It's been posted. We also have a watershed RFQ. The reason why we're reposting is that the one that we had was for 5 years with the option to extend 1 year twice. So we are at that place that expires in December, and we've got new things that we want to, now we're at a place where we've really closing out this high priority areas for watershed studies, and we're moving into how do we maintain the models we've got? How do we update them as we build, as we get these projects built? What are we doing in terms of managing our survey? And we're looking at a strategic plan as part of that, where we want to tie the stormwater pieces together, and that's water quality and our modeling, and there are a lot of other elements there too. So that's a big part of that RFQ. Funding strategies, we really, with that over $1 billion of need, just need some money. So we're working really hard to try to find the resources we need. I mentioned we're going to finish these round 1 watershed studies. So we've got Cape Fear 1. We've got, that's in process. It just kicked off. Little Rockfish 2 and Stewart's, those studies have just kicked off. Those are our last 3 that are remaining of the high priority studies. The 2 Little Rockfish 2 and Stewart's, we're hoping to do those in-house. They're very small. But of course, we always need oversight. We want to formalize how we prioritize projects. So we don't know, maybe it's some kind of decision support tool or something that helps us. All right, what's the question this council member has? Hit a button and it gives us the right order, because that's just going to constantly shift and change as money's available, as council comes and goes, as just priorities will shift. We're trying to do some, we're making a good effort to start doing some in-house designs on some of the smaller projects. And that's, I think that's going to go a long ways to training our staff in design, and then also having small projects ready should funding come available. And we've got this stormwater utility, so we'll be using some of that to fund the construction of some of these small projects. Yeah, and then like I said, we're surveying the rest of the stormwater assets, and we're having to update that GBB as that survey is collected. There's survey oversight that's needed, and then some of these roles, basically people serve as an extension of staff. And I know if you're consulting, you're sort of used to doing that sometimes, for some clients. We're very I don't know how other local governments are. This is my first local government job, but we're very understaffed. So, it's like everybody, I guess. We've got to develop our model maintenance. So how are we going to be maintaining those models as projects get built? And then who's going to maintain them? And then, how will the model geodatabase be updated? There are a lot of questions we have. We have a flood awareness campaign. So part of that is this installation of gauges and working with emergency management and our communications. And like I said, we're working with our emergency management right now, staff, to talk about how are we communicating before an event? How can we support them before, during, and after? Tropical Storm Debbie was a real eye opener for me because I was trying to support our emergency management, our streets maintenance in the field. We're trying to train them on firemen, but the reality is they're out in the field. They're doing all this other stuff. They don't have time to pull up firemen and check a gauge and see if that water level is rising or not. So that's one of our first steps is we're going to be in communication with them during an event if we have one. I mentioned the dams, and then we have all this data. So some of these reports, these exhibits with exhibits and everything, 800 pages, it's old school reports, big ones. I mean, we don't print them out. But there are a lot of exhibits. So there are a lot of figures that show the inundation under existing conditions, inundation under this future project, the infrastructure maps, and the data sheets. So we're thinking about, we really need to make sure this is available, and we'd like for it to be public facing at some point, at least to know what the level of service is. So I covered this. I've added there's just so many things that can change. So as y'all all know, we're going to have additional concern areas. We're going to have growth. Demographics are going to shift. We've got some regional overlay solutions. Things are going to, maybe the Parks and Rec Master Plan, certain component gets in, they can develop theirs before we get to ours. Policy changes, future uncertainty about climate or whatever is going to happen. Sustainability, we're going to constantly be reprioritizing. And we'll have additional potential solutions. And, technology is going to continue to change faster. So. All right. So I did kind of zip through this pretty quickly. I really wanted to take a moment to thank the entire team that's been working with us. Arcadis, there's a gradient team with HDR and Woolpert, the Kimry Horn team with Moffitt Nichols, Hazen team with ESP, Friesen Nichols and ESP and Stewart have also been working closely with us to date. And we have a lot of collaborators. I mean, we have been very fortunate to have strong collaborations with the state, the federal. We've got some great relationships now with our professional organizations, APWA and ASFPM. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm the stormwater track reviewer for abstracts for ASFPM. They invited me to do that again this year, which I like because then I get to see the new stuff that's getting promoted. And I've written a few papers that are related to how we've managed this program. And I submitted an article for APWA. It's about 3 years old now. But the really nice thing is that the U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit has ingested that article. And so we're getting a lot out there to tell what, just to showcase our work and let everybody know we have high hopes for what the city of Fayetteville can become, and getting rid of a lot of this, or mitigating as much of this flooding as we can, is a big part of it. This is a great photo, 1945. This is your project. I mean, Person Street. Yeah, in 1945, probably before Jordan Lake the dam up there was built, I think. But still, it flooded. Okay, so hope I didn't rush through it too much. Y'all have any questions?